fix my levels, the bass and treble. Whoa, yeah. I said good morning to you. Hey, hey, hey. Ooh, Lord. Yeah, I think this music, it hits now. I said good morning, without a warning. Low. Good morning, gentlemen. And good morning, ladies. And welcome.
Let's just call it square, eh?
The Meditations of Men.
Fair enough. Paid.
And more importantly, gentlemen and gentle ladies, more importantly, welcome to a chance to maybe do something that you should have done by now. You know what that is. Welcome to a chance to do something that maybe you should have done by now, but for reasons outside your control and beyond your notice, you haven't gotten it done. Do you know what that thing is? Hey. You're playing games and you're moving fast. I don't think we gon' last. 'Cause baby, you trippin'. I'm standing here in the old doorway. Don't care what you say. Lady, I'm dipping. Give me my car keys. I don't want this no more. Say what you wanna say. I'm leaving anyway. Oh, just give me my car keys and let me leave. I'm on my own now. Somehow. I'm on my own somehow, right now. I'm on my own now. Give me a one, you're on your own now. Yeah. Oh, give me a one now. Just give me my car keys. I don't want this no more. Take it far away from me. Give me my old thing and my combustible engine. You know that I am singeing the atmosphere. I don't care. Good morning, gentlemen. Mandatory meeting on your day off. Mandatory work on a day off. Doesn't sound like a day off to me, does it? Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome, ladies. Let's get warmed up, shall we? It's been a while, and this old mechanical mouth might have some mechanical rust. Yeah? All right. Let's talk about those mandatory meetings. Yeah. It's a mandatory meeting. Coming in the room, the boss shows seating. I gotta sit here next to the lady, the one that I work with that I think is a little crazy. But I gotta come. Man, my boss doesn't even know where from I am. And he doesn't even care. He sits there in his chair and expects me to stare. Don't care about presentations. Let me leave this place and feel elation in my spine. I'm the reason why everyone feels fine. Yeah. A mandatory meeting on your day off. It makes you wonder how people develop the courage to speak to us in that tone of voice. Tomorrow in your free time, and the time you have all to yourself, I want you to do something for me. I want you to take your time that you are allotted, and I want you to do something of my choosing. It makes you wonder how they ever developed the courage to speak to us that way. Tell me, gentlemen, how does this happen? How do we end up so far upside down in these social exchanges with others? What's happening here? 50-minute drive round trip. That's not happening. Or maybe it will happen. It's up to you. Windmill says love your family. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't. I put the question to you, Windmills. Do you love your family? How does it happen? How do we end up so far upside down in our relationships? I could have sworn that when this relationship began, I was happy with it. I know I was happy with it because I made the choice to be here. Welcome, Patel. Pray tell, how doth that shadow rise today? We're talking about you, friend. And we're talking about how we end up so far upside down in our relationships. How is it, Patel, that at the very beginning of our meeting others, whether this person be a boss, a friend, a lover, despite how happy we were in that first moment to meet them, we end up feeling so bad later on? I used to love you, but later on, later on, I used to love you. Are the people or the society the problem? Good question. The answer is somewhere in the middle. Who gets to decide how other people treat you? Who determines this? Who writes the rules when it comes to how other people treat you? Who writes the rules? Who writes the rules? Do you know who writes the rules? Tell me, who wrote the rules? You do, Toasted. You do. You wrote the rules. Davy said a pussy wrote them. Davy, yeah, called himself a pussy. Davy, he said a pussy wrote them. Sometimes we can be pussies, can't we? There's no shame in admitting that. Sometimes we can be a bit of a pussy, can't we? But the architect, the author of your rules of engagement, is you, brother. You get to set the rules. You get to make them up. in terms of how other people treat you. If you realize what this means, give me a 4 in the chat. If you don't know what this means, give me a 5. Do you know what this means? If you are the one who writes the rules, if you are the one who establishes the rules of engagement when it comes to how people interact with you, then why are you treated the way you are in your relationships? It's for one of two reasons. Either one, these are the rules of engagement that you have set with others. How other people are currently treating you, your boss telling you to get up out of bed at 7 a.m. on your day off and come in for a meeting. At some point in your relationship, you decided that this was acceptable, and you began putting up with it. Maybe at the time your boss thought he was being reasonable. I don't know. I don't know what your days off are like to you. I'm a boss. I'm doing what I feel is best. I need everyone here. It happens to be on your day off, okay? You gotta eat that. I'm not in your shoes. I don't know what it feels like to be you and to have to drive 50 miles or 50 minutes round trip to be here for a meeting. The only way I know how that feels is if you tell me. The only way I know that this is a problem is if you speak up and say, hey, tomorrow is my day off. I'm not coming into work. But if you haven't said that, maybe he doesn't know that it's an inconvenience. So what does that mean for you? It means that you have to set appropriate boundaries with others. Boundaries are agreements with outsiders, right? If you were to build a home or a castle, what would you do? You would put a fence around it, right? And what would this fence do? The fence would act as a visual contract between you and the public and determine how far, how close they can come to you. This is the property line. This is the barrier around my property. You can come as close to this barrier as you wish, but you can't step over. This fence is a visual reminder. We have to do something similar in our relationships with others. What's up, Sushi? It's a sushi revolution. My brother, read the Constitution. A sushi revolution. Read it in the Constitution. Yay. Sushi says, just speak up and don't be a pussy. Say plain in your mind. Tell them how you feel. Just say it plainly. Tell them how you feel. Just tell them mainly. Life will give you what you put in. Thank you for your contribution, Sushi. It's very important to speak your mind. It's very important to open up and tell people how you wish for them to treat you. But one thing we want to be careful of, what's up, Fully Roided? One thing we want to be careful of is a little 4-letter word. Do you know what that word is? What is the 4-letter word? The 4-letter word that should be at the forefront of all of our interactions with others. A little 4-letter word called tact. Panda, welcome. Tact. I used to watch you years and years ago. Welcome back, brother. It's good to see you again. You'd be surprised what you see when you speak, huh? This 4-letter word called tact. Tact is the ability to communicate with others without needlessly offending them. To speak openly and plainly without any regard for how the other person is going to receive you is nothing more than getting it off of your chest. Right? We say we're doing it for them. I just want to tell you the truth. But when we unload on others in this way, that's not what we're doing. We're not even thinking about them. Because if we were thinking about them, we would have chosen our words in a way that wouldn't hurt them. So when we unload on others, we're thinking about ourselves. We are feeling this pressure. We are carrying this weight and we want to dump it off. So we just dump it off. Who cares how it lands on them? I want to get this off of me. But tact is when you flip that around. Tact is when you prioritize how your words will be received over how good it will feel to simply say them. Does this make sense? If this makes sense to you, give me a 1 in the chat. Welcome, Yoshi. Give me a 1. If this doesn't make any sense to you, if you're struggling, I'm struggling, brother. Give me a 2 instead. Tact is when we put the priority on how our words will be experienced by the other person over how good we will feel to merely dump on others. You ask yourself questions like this. How do I want this person to feel after talking to me? Do I care? You can start with that one. Do I care how this person feels after speaking with me? Maybe you don't care. You're not required to. If you don't care how the person feels after talking to you, then you don't have to be mindful of tact. Feel free to just dump on them. A stranger, maybe someone you're cutting ties with, someone you don't intend to build a relationship with for whatever reason, feel free to just dump on these people if you don't care how they feel. But if this is someone you wish to build a relationship with, if this is someone you intend to have in your life, you should think about how your words will be received. Let me give you an example. Suppose you had a friend, gentleman, who you noticed was consuming copious amounts of alcohol. In the beginning, it was a little bit. Now it's a whole lot. This person doesn't believe that they're drinking too much. To them, they don't feel they have a problem, and this is evident by their behavior. They don't care how much they drinking. I want you to put yourself in the shoes of a concerned friend. You are the concerned friend of this person who is now drinking too much. Every time I see this person, they have a bottle in their hand. Every time. What would you say to this person? Remember, gentlemen, there are no wrong answers here. As long as your answer is honest and reflects who you are, it's all right. Just be authentic. What would you say to this friend, this person, as their concerned friend? Sushi says, actually, everybody will respect you if you are clear. I should say anybody worth a grain of salt would respect you. So what's most important, you're saying, is being understood. As long as you speak in a way that makes it easy to be understood, your audience will respect you. Am I capturing you correctly? How you look and carry yourself is important as well. How so, brother? Give me more on that. Why should I accept their definition? They not accept mine? That's a good question. How would you answer that? Why should you accept theirs if they're not accepting yours? They have free will to drink as much as they want. If they drink to the point of death, that is on them. So what I hear you saying, Gesu, is you wouldn't say anything to them. As a concerned friend, you would keep your concerns to yourself. Am I hearing you accurately? You're saying it's on them, you got free will. If you want to drink a lot, go for it. I might have some concerns, but I'm going to keep them to myself. Is that what you're saying? If they are somebody I love and care for, I would never give up on them. It's your duty for the people you truly love. So how would you communicate that concern to someone you truly loved? Let's say there was someone you truly loved who was dealing with alcoholism, but they weren't quite aware, not yet, that they had an issue. And this can happen to people, right? A person can be drinking every day and not know it. I know several people who drink every day and don't think that they have a drinking problem. They do it every day. It can escape their notice. I've known people who've gotten in DUIs. They were clearly drunk, but refused to acknowledge that their drinking contributed to the accident. You realize that you were drunk when you got in that accident. Yeah, but that don't mean nothing. I've been drinking for 30 years. I know how to handle my alcohol. Okay, that car jumped out in front of me. They'll make these arguments because they haven't yet made the connection. Maybe it's the fact that you were drunk. Maybe that's why you crashed. Is it possible? Usually you have to start even further back than that. You have to ask them big, broad questions like, what are some reasons that could have led to this accident? Okay. What are some reasons that could have led to this car accident? Well, they jumped out in front of me. The traffic light stopped too fast. It changed too fast. They'll take it there. The brakes in the car weren't working right. Anything else that could have contributed to this? Well, I didn't get a lot of sleep last night. But love often means being patient. Sometimes it takes people a while. Sometimes they don't do it on their own. Someone has to be there to say, some people have a problem when it comes to driving well after drinking. What's that supposed to mean? Like it hasn't entered their mind. And if it has entered their mind, maybe they're so good at playing games with themselves mentally, they've kept themselves from acknowledging it. The human mind can be deep and confusing. So, back to the question, gentlemen. Suppose you had a friend who was struggling with the throes of alcohol. Let's say this person had gotten into a car accident while intoxicated. But for some reason, they didn't feel it was related to the alcohol. What would you say to this person? Let's say this is someone you love. Someone you care about. Let's say it was your spouse. I told my dad, who was drinking a lot, you've got people around you that love you and want to spend as much time with you as they can. If you keep drinking like this, you're going to cut this time short. If you don't care about that, that's fine. Just know what you're leaving behind. All right. On a scale from 1 to 5, how tactful was that? To what degree did it prioritize the feelings of the recipient? 1 being not at all, 5 being to the max. I'm going to give that about a 4. That was pretty good. There was nothing accusatory about what that individual said, about what you said to your dad. It didn't point the finger or assign blame. It didn't belittle or put him down. And the reason why you want to avoid these things is that once you offend a person, they're no longer listening to you. We can say whatever we want to people, But if you offend your audience, they're no longer listening to you. The part of their brain that they require to break down what you're saying and process it shuts off, and they go into a freeze, fight, or flight mode. They are no longer listening. Okay? They have taken offense and they are angry. You've lost your audience. And if you've lost your audience, well, then who are you talking to? Think about it. If you've lost your audience, then who are you talking to? No one. Guess who says that is their life? Choices you can agree or disagree, but they made the decision. It depends on where you stand. Okay, so my question to you, guess who, was a little less complicated. The question was, would you keep your concerns to yourself? Recognizing as you do that this is a choice they're making, would you keep your concerns to yourself, or would you vocalize your concerns to the person? They've gotten an accident. They've gotten into an accident. And they were intoxicated. They don't feel that their drinking was the cause of it. Would you vocalize your concerns? Or would you say, it's none of my business. I'll keep it to myself. Sushi says, the axioms of libertarians are just so cancer in a society. Your actions have ripples in society. You will affect others even if you are the only one directly affected by your actions. I'm going to agree with that, brother. If we lived in smaller communities, that would be a lot more obvious to us. For example, let's break it down to the smallest number possible. Let's say it was just you and one other person who shared a forest. Okay? It's you and one other person who share a forest. You have agreed to certain rules, right? I will fish in the lake on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, and you can fish in the lake on these days, and then we'll share a day, right? You have agreements that you've made with this person, and you've made these agreements so that you all don't end up killing each other. We both have to live here. We both want to live off of what the forest produces. Well, we want to do that in a way that doesn't result in us fighting over resources. So we have come up with a contract, and the contract is, I will live on this side of the forest. You will live on that side of the forest. We will share common areas. The lake will be yours for 3 days. It'll be mine for 3 days, and we will share the 7th. Maybe on the 7th day, we'll come together and we'll have a feast, right? To reinforce our bond. These are our arrangements. These are our agreements. Now, imagine if that other person decided to get drunk one day. How long would it be before that person's decision to drink impacted you? How long could you survive in a forest with a drunkard before their drunkenness became a problem for you? Are you welcome, Sushi? How long could you exist in this forest with a drunkard before their drunkenness became a problem for you? How long? What if he gets too drunk one day and forgets that it's your turn to fish at the lake? This drunk man has shown up at the lake to fish on your day. He's violating that agreement now. Wait a second. This is my day to be at the lake. What if because of his drunkenness, he begins to stumble onto your side of the forest? Wait a second, we had an agreement. You stay on that side of the forest, I'm on this side. Listen. If you keep violating this agreement, then we will have no agreement at all, and we will be in that natural state of war with each other. right? You got to respect the rules here. We have a contract, and if that contract is nullified, then we go back to square one, you and I. Do you want to live in the forest with a man you have no agreement with? How many of you all want to live in a forest with a man you haven't agreed to anything with? You haven't established boundaries with him. You want to live in the forest with him? Before we do that, let's get some things. Let's come to a few agreements here. That's like living in a house with someone you haven't made any rules with. Wait a second. What if that person likes to wear shoes in the house? If you're Japanese, that's a no-go. You can't wear shoes in the house. You might get into a fight over that. He comes into the house with shoes. Wait a second. You got to go outside. Don't tell me to go outside. Now you guys are fighting over that. All right? So you have to come to some agreements before you share a living space with another individual. So when we look at it that way, we can see how very quickly, immediately, someone else's decisions will impact us. But when we look at it at the macro level, people living in cities, where people aren't directly implicated in the effects that they cause around them, right? If only one person were throwing a cigarette butt on the ground, it'd be a problem and you'd notice it. But when everyone is throwing a cigarette butt on the ground, or half the population, well, everybody does it, right? People get disconnected from their accountability. So at the macro level, we forget these very basic understandings about human interactions. We have to be aware enough, sober enough to make reasonable agreements with our neighbors and to respect those agreements. If you can't make reasonable agreements with your neighbors, you can't live with them. Eventually, you will kill each other. Thomas Hobbes said that this is the natural condition of man. We are naturally at war with each other until we establish a social contract, some way of limiting our freedom. Sushi says, not too long, maybe like a month tops. Does it make you wonder how animals survived? Animals survive with using the rule of the jungle. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. But the rule of the jungle is very brutal, brother. Catch as catch can. The rule of the jungle is tough, brother. And we can do that. But life would be very brutal and very short for all of us. Think about that. But that's how wild animals live. That's why gorillas are so strong, right? The only booty a gorilla gets is the booty he can defend from other gorillas, right? So you got to be strong as a gorilla. Aren't you glad that you don't have to fight other men to get a woman? Aren't you glad? Imagine if you had to fight to get a girlfriend. Aren't you glad you don't have to do that? That somehow everyone in your community has come to the agreement to let every other man have a chance at getting a woman. But imagine if that rule were violated. Elon Musk would just come to your town and just buy up all the women. Hey girls, you want to be with the richest man in the world, and just come and soak up all the girls in your town. But what would happen if he did that? If Elon Musk came using his wealth and his prestige to soak up all the girls in your town, it's gonna be war, brother. It's gonna be war. So we have to come to some agreements to avoid war, right? Let me catch up with you guys. Exactly, Wake. And this is just between two people. Imagine hundreds of millions of people drug addicted, unaliving babies in their fetus because it's their bodily autonomy. Yeah, it begins to impact other people. It's a bit of an illusion that our decisions don't impact others. We're all connected. Sometimes even just your example can enable someone else to not think so much of their actions. I express my thoughts Once to a person I knew who won the Powerball lotto. She was an alcoholic and a gambling addict. After federal and state taxes, she got close to 30 million. She never got help, treatment. Her addictions got worse. She died broke and decompensated from decompensated psoriasis caused by alcoholism. Ouch. Are you all right, brother? Are you okay? It's all right if you're not okay with that. It's painful to watch someone you love die, especially when you were trying to help them. Yeah, give yourself permission to not be okay if you're not okay with what happened. Sometimes we want people to live longer, right? A person will make a choice, a decision that we don't like, because that decision results maybe in us not being around them. Meme. Welcome. TTRR. We don't like that. I want this person to be in my life for as long as possible. And because they're drinking, I know that that time will be cut short. So stop drinking. Stop it. Right? Stop it. And sometimes they will stop it. But sometimes a person will make the decision, I'm okay dying early. I know the risks. I know that if I keep drinking, I'll die. And I'm okay with that. We will never be okay with someone we love being okay with dying sooner than they have to. We want to hold on, stick around, live longer, stop drinking. But that's not up to us, is it? If a person wants to drink themselves to death, they can. A person doesn't have to live longer or treat their bodies better because we want them to. They might be okay with the fact that they are destroying their brain and their body. And that's difficult for us to accept, because why would a person be okay with that? No, if you're okay with drinking and smoking yourself to death, then you must have a disease. Because that's the only way a person could disagree with me on this, is if they are sick. But is that true? What do you think? Tell me what your heart says. If a person makes the decision to drink themselves to death, knowing the consequences, yeah, I know if I keep drinking like this, I'm going to die. I still don't want to stop. Is this in and of itself a disease? If you feel that it is, give me a 1 in the chat. If you feel that this is not a disease, that there is no pathology, give me a 2 instead. And while you do that, how about some bars? Can we try a freestyle rap? Shelly, would that be acceptable? If we did one of those freestyle raps, I know a lot of people are doing those nowadays. Can we try one of those? I think it's when you play a beat and you just make up words that rhyme. Make up phrases with rhyming words. Can we try that, Shelly? All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got 8 legs like a spider. I'm an outside man, but I'm still inside her. Early morning and it's 4 a.m. I got a bag of nuts and some M&M's side by side. Put them together and they're big yellow. Yo, girlfriend thinks I'm a handsome fellow. I'm so mellow cause I sit in the back. Guaranteed that I can bring a whole stack. All right. Thank you for that. So let's see what you all said. They have listed alcoholism is hereditary. You know, it's not unusual for people to pathologize that. That violates their values. I'm not surprised that we pathologize alcoholism because it's in violation of our values. Our culture values sobriety, clearness of mind. A person who is under the influence of alcohol is not these things. They violate social values and norms. Therefore, we pathologize it and we say, if you drank too much, you have a problem. But let me demonstrate the hypocrisy in this. Incessant drinking is pathologized. It's a problem. But what about excessive avoidance of alcohol? This is not a pathology, is it? Is this hypocritical? Why do we only pathologize one side of the coin? I'll give you another example. If a person is excessively sad, we say they are depressed. You're depressed. You have depression. This is pathologized, excessive sadness. But what if a person is excessively happy? Is this a mental illness? No, it isn't. We call this normality. Hypocritical, isn't it? Why do we only pathologize in one direction? It's because this is the direction that corresponds with our values, right? So our values dictate pathology. What I mean to say to you, gentlemen, is that there's no such thing as a mental illness. What your society calls a mental illness is a combination of human behavior, maladaptive human behavior, and a clash of values and norms. That's what it is. Another word for this is a culturally bound syndrome. In some cultures, there is an excessive fear that people will smell your body odor. You find this in a lot of Asian countries, specifically Japan. There is a mental illness that's culturally bound, meaning that it's found primarily in certain cultures where people are excessively worryful that people will smell their body odors. And so the methods that they employ to avoid being smelled by others begins to interfere with other areas of their life. Their grades begin to suffer because they're spending too much time. What's up, Homo sapien? My homo person. They spend too much time bathing, cleansing, worrying. They start missing school. They start missing work. They start missing appointments. Their friends start missing them. It's becoming an issue. They're arguing about it. They're fighting about it. They lost a job over it. They failed a class because of it. This is when it becomes an issue. But in general, depression is a myth. One of the biggest giveaways about the mythology of depression is the fact that so many things can cause it. what we call depression, there really isn't too many things that can't cause it. Practically everything has been identified as the cause of depression. But then let's talk about the definition of depression, right? The diagnostic criteria. You have to have episodes of at least 2 weeks. What if my episode was only a week and 6 days? I guess I don't have depression, do I? What's the difference between 1 week and 2 weeks? Two people who meet the same exact criteria, but one of them only meets it for a week, and the other person meets it for 2 weeks, but yet they both don't have the same condition? Imagine that, gentlemen. Imagine two people exhibiting the same exact behavior. One of them does it for a week, the other does it for 2 weeks. One of them does it for a week and 5 days, and one of them does it for a week and 7 days. And because of this, but despite this, only one of them gets diagnosed with depression. What? How does this make any sense? It's not always going to make sense, because the people who created this were broken people, just like us, trying to find their way in the dark. Facts, you say? What's up, Rizia? Reminds me of how a lack of air-conditioned classrooms leads to poor academic performance. I would love to see the methods of that study. We know a vast majority of Asians have genetic issues with alcohol, Asian flush. So how did that develop in billions from one region? Billions in one region? What do you think, brother? You just got to eat a lot of veggies and drink a lot of water, and you won't smell like crap and have to wear tons of cologne. Yeah, they don't stink. It's just an excessive worrying about stink. We have culturally bound disorders as well. In your culture, there are mental illnesses that exist, or things that are recognized as mental illnesses in your culture that the rest of the world doesn't have. They don't deal with it. Can anyone here think of one? What's an example of a culturally bound syndrome that is unique to our culture, that other cultures just, sorry, we just don't have that problem? We don't have that issue here. I'll give you an example. A condition that we see in America and other parts of the Western world that you do not find in other places is bulimia. The symptoms that we identify as evidence of the presence of bulimia, these are culturally bound. You don't see them in places where our culture doesn't exist. What does this tell you about the nature of what we consider to be mental illness? That there is a cultural component to it. Your culture can transmit mental illnesses? Whoa, what does that mean? Who knows what it means? What do you think it means? Oh, gentlemen, we have a media share. If you'd like to share some media with us, go ahead and drop that into the submission feed, in Twitch. If you are enjoying the commentary, then put your feet up for a while. All right. Oh yeah, I guess we haven't talked about this, have we?
Everybody, welcome to the News at 10. I'm Rick Chambers.
And I'm Corrine Winter. In an escalation that could spark all-out war in the Middle East, the United States has dramatically entered Israel's war against Iran.
Yeah, American jets bombed 3 nuclear sites over in the Islamic Republic. One of those sites was the infamous mountain facility at Fordo, a major uranium enrichment center, hundreds of feet underground. And in a speech to the nation, as you heard, President Trump said that all of the sites were, quote, completely and totally obliterated.
We have live team coverage tonight. KTLA's Sarah Welsh is getting a local reaction to the strikes. But first, to Rachel Menitoff now from the KTLA News Center with details of the military action. Rachel.
Okay. Before we watch the rest of this, I want to see if we can get a statement directly from the president on this.
The United States has carried out.
Yeah, I just want the raw footage of the president talking about it. Let's go to the man. Okay, let's pause it right there. What do you make of these optics? Take a look at the optics here. The camera is positioned in such a way to where there is symmetry created by the flags and the podium in the center. Look at how the red carpet stretches all the way back, evenly on both sides, chandelier in the middle. The framing is perfectly balanced almost. He's an incredible man, and he has intellectual mannerisms as you, and also has a curious heart. Thank you, brother. Sounds like a cool guy. But tell me what you make of the framing of this image. Look at the symmetry that has been created by the framing. You have flags flanking both sides of the image with the podium right in the center. You have the red carpet stretching to the back, to the very tall door in the background. Look how tall that door is. Look how large that door is. If you didn't know any better, you would think that a giant lived in the White House. Look at how big that door is. Who would need a door that big? No man is large enough to necessitate that size of a door. So why did they do it? Why do you think? When the architect, the interior designer, were putting together the home, why did they say, let's make a door that stretches from the ceiling to the floor? It's to communicate power. Yes, we want people to think that a giant lives here, someone who is larger than most men. And in many ways, gentlemen, the American president is larger than any man. And the president lives in the White House. So if you are visiting the White House, yes, let's make the doors large. That way when people visit and they see these doors, they'll think a giant lives here, because a giant does live here. The President of the United States. This is propaganda. You realize that, right? Propaganda. Images are being conveyed to you at a level you don't consciously register awareness. And this is meant to impact how you feel without engaging you mentally. It's meant to put feelings inside of you before you've had a chance to think about what's being conveyed. And it works. Look at how balanced the frame is. Sort of like the president's decisions are always balanced, right? right? Does the American government always make well-balanced decisions? What do you think? If you feel that America always makes balanced decisions, give me a 1. If you feel that America doesn't always do that, no, sometimes you go a little too hard. Sometimes not hard enough. Give me a 2 instead. I love propaganda as long as it promotes Orthodox Christianity. I welcome my Christian brother. 1 blue tie, 3 red ties. Yeah, what does this mean? Notice how they're wearing, all together they comprise the colors of the American flag, red, white, and blue. This communicates America. America. Yeah, America doesn't always make well-balanced decisions. Sometimes they make very poor decisions that are unbalanced and do more harm than good. This image is meant to make you think otherwise. No, America always makes balanced decisions. Notice where the camera is placed. The camera is placed at such a way that you will be, I think, at eye level with the president. Let's play it a little bit more.
Thank you very much. A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities.
Okay. So, I think this is interesting. If you're speaking to a child, but you want the child to feel respected, what's an easy way to make the child feel respected? Yeah, it probably took them a long time to set up the framing and then the lighting too. Look at how it's illuminated. To get the framing and the lighting took a while, but these people are professionals. These people are professionals. Yeah, when you want to make a child feel included, sometimes you get down at the eye level of a child, you know, to convey the illusion of equality. You're not equal to a child. You know that, the child knows that. Or for that brief moment that you get down on the kid's level, hey, little Johnny, the kid feels like a grown-up. He feels like he's a partner in this relationship. I feel a similar sensation when the president is speaking. The camera zooms in to put him almost at eye level, as if he's leveling with us. I'm going to be honest with you. Notice how he's also flanked by the Vice President, the Secretary of State, and the Secretary of Defense, as if this was a decision he didn't make on his own. There are people backing my decision. I'm not sure if Donald Trump is that kind of leader. I don't think Trump is that kind of leader. I think Trump, as opposed to making decisions that his advisors tell him, I think he's more of the school that he expects his advisors to get behind him. Did you see the extremely embarrassing Trump tweet? Oh, let me take a look. Talk on their eye level. Yeah, very good. That's nothing new. If you look back at the Obama made a speech about how death was Osama. Yeah. They're very good, right? The cinematographer, very good. Look at what he did. Very good. The lighters, whoever it is on the lighting team, they did a fantastic job. These are professionals. The makeup artists. Does this look like a man who's nearly 80? It doesn't, does it? The makeup artists did a great job. The interior designers, the wardrobe specialists, look at the outfits, the suits they picked out for them. Yeah. They can afford the best. And when it comes to government propaganda, you want the best. Let's continue.
In the Iranian regime, Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani.
So Mr. Trump here is making the argument that America's enemies are your enemies. America has some enemies out there. And those enemies are also your enemies, Yak Riel. Revolution, Cheap Effects. They're your enemies. Does anyone here agree with that? Do you agree that because you live in a particular geographic area, that a legal entity called a country claims as its own, do you feel that this naturally makes you enemies with people who were born in other geographic locations claimed by other legal entities called countries? If you do, give me a 1 in the chat. Are the Iranians your enemy? What about the Russians? Do you accept the Russians as your enemy? How about the Taliban? Do you accept the Taliban as your enemy? Do you accept the enemies that have been assigned to you by your rulers? Mr. Trump says the Iranians are your enemy. Here's why. For 40 years. Here's why. State sponsor of terror. Here's why. They've been bullying the Middle East. Do you accept his argument? Do all of those things make the Iranians your enemy? Are you beefing with them now? There was a comedian that made a joke, something along the lines of, imagine flying to another country, shooting at their people, and complaining why they shoot back. Strange, innit? Sushi says, bro, I couldn't give a fuck less if Iran wrecks Israel. Just like I don't really care if Iran gets wrecked. It seems as if you refuse your assigned enemies and your assigned allies. America says that Americans should love Israel. You ought to be loyal to Israel. You ought to care about the interests and the goals of Israel. Trump believes what he's saying. I've seen videos of people go to Iran. People were very friendly. My dad was in the Marines for 30 years and was in the first Gulf War. The folks there mostly surrendered because they didn't have supplies. They and my dad were just fighting other rich people's wars. Yeah. The Ayatollah wants all Americans dead. He has been saying it for decades. He has been in power. Let's take that at face value. What's up, conservative liberalism? Let's take that at face value. Let's say that the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Khomeini, said that. You know what this means? It would mean that one person in Iran wants all Americans dead, because that's all the Ayatollah is. He's one person. Do you feel that he represents all Iranians? What do you think, brother? You know, Donald Trump says things too. Donald Trump said that a previous election was rigged. He also said that all those charges were trumped up. He didn't do anything wrong. He's the leader of the executive office. But how many Americans do you feel he represents? I think his approval numbers are in the 30s now. Not very high. So if Trump doesn't represent all Americans, well, then most certainly the Ayatollah doesn't represent all Iranians. You understand? He's just some guy in Iran. He doesn't speak for all Iranians, does he? Of course he doesn't. So even if we take that at face value, I don't know if he said that, but let's assume he did say it. What does that have to do with you and all of the other millions of people in Iran? Yeah, he's not even elected. So it's quite possible that no one else agrees with him. This is something unique to our species. We are the only species who will fight because we are told that other people far, far away that have never wronged us are our enemies. Gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos are far more rational with their violence. A gorilla will fight another gorilla, but he'll fight another gorilla over a practical reason. Territory, booty, right? You'll never see a gorilla jump out of a tree with a gun because some gorilla told him that these gorillas were his enemies on the other side of the jungle, where he'd never been and would never be anyway. Only humans do that. Bonobos, chimpanzees, orangutans, and gorillas can't be manipulated in that way. A gorilla will only fight his real enemy, not his assigned enemies. But not us. Right? Not us. You can just tell us a story about why someone else is our enemy. And we'll say, you're right. Give me a gun and point me in their direction. We'll shoot, 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 shoot. What's wrong with us? Mr. Trump is doing that right now. He's saying, look at the Iranians. These are your enemies. Get mad, 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 mad. Look at what they've been doing. Get mad, 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 mad. You're not mad enough. Get mad, 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 mad. No, Mr. President. No. I'm not going to get mad at the Iranians. I've met some people from Iran. Never been wronged by anyone from Iran. Never had any problems with a person from Iran. Not once. One of my son's teachers is Iranian. Fantastic lady, her and her husband. I've never had beef with any Iranians. Not once. And if I went to Iran, I'd probably have a great time. I don't see why I wouldn't. So I refuse this invitation to consider the Iranians as my enemy. No, they're not my enemy. Not even close. In fact, I don't think any of my enemies come from that region of the world. Not one. I mean, if I do have enemies, if there are people who wish to do me harm, it's probably the people who have access to me. Like my own rulers, the people I share my country and my geography with, these people who have access to me. The crackheads on the street, yeah. Corrupt cops. The corrupt cops in your neighborhood are a far greater threat than any person with an Arabic name. I promise you that, brother. Let me say this again. You stand a greater chance at being killed by a corrupt cop in your neighborhood than anyone in the Middle East, any day of the week. Iranian women aren't allowed outside after dark. Okay. Looks like that's how they do things over there. How do you feel about that? Sounds like the Iranians do things differently, culturally. You don't feel great about that. Why not? Why not? The legit corrupt cop is more of a threat than your average Muhammad every day of the week. The crooked politician who allows drugs to be sold in your neighborhoods, he's a much greater threat than anyone with an Arabic last name. That's good. Better than them going to clubs and getting STDs. Dang, they can't trade Pokemon cards at 2 a.m. then. What's up, Whiskey Leaks? Whiskey Leaks? What's up, brother? I think it's fine they have rules for their culture, and their women have roles, and their men have roles. Although I don't agree with Iran's morality police, they as a country have a right to self-determination. If they want change, they should create it. What if we decided on a universal level? Yeah. If those are the rules that they live by, I guess the question becomes this. Do we have the right to impose our values and our views on other people? What do you think? Suppose you met someone who lived a little differently than you. Right? A little differently than you. He dressed a little differently than you did. He ate food that was a little different from the food you ate. The people responsible for 9/11 did not have Arabic last names, brother. I promise you that. Ain't no Muslims in Mossad. When they start accepting Muslims in Mossad, brother. Yeah, they have to get America off the fence. We need you to come over here and help us topple our neighbors. Yeah, brother, and they're still doing it. And they're still doing it. We need you guys to come over here and fight our war for us. Come over here and fight these wars for us. And look at us, fighting these wars for them still. Still, literally still. You thought we learned. It's been almost 25 years, but we're still fighting wars for them. Let me ask you about 9/11. Let's talk about 9/11 for a second. Let's jump to 9/11 for a minute, then we'll come back to this. What hit the Pentagon? Let's start there. What hit the Pentagon? Did an airplane? If you feel that an airplane hit the Pentagon, give me a 1 in the chat. Okay, let's just see where everyone is on this. Do you feel that a plane hit the Pentagon? If you think so, give me a 1. If you feel that it was not a plane that hit the Pentagon, give me a 2 instead. Let's just see where you all fall on this. Okay, we have a few people who think it was a plane that hit 9/11. Okay, who hit that hit the Pentagon? Okay. Okay. Well, brothers and sisters, if you believe that a plane hit the Pentagon, I have a very pressing question for you. And if you can solve this question, if you can answer this question and solve this problem, you'll probably win a Nobel Prize, because, I mean, you'll get a Nobel Prize in physics, in heroism. They might make their own category for you, your own category, to give you an award. The plane that is alleged to have hit the Pentagon had 2 twin Rolls-Royce engines on them. Huge Rolls-Royce engines on them. The official explanation is that they evaporated. If you can demonstrate how aluminum and steel jet engines can be evaporated, brother, come get your Nobel Prize in physics. Come get your Nobel Prize in physics, because that's what you would get if you can demonstrate that. If you can demonstrate right now to the scientific community how jets, huge jets, can someone look up how much they weigh? These were huge jets. How they evaporated. You will have earned every bit of that $1 million cash prize that comes with that Nobel Prize. Because, boy, we could use you right now. That would help out a lot. The official explanation is that they evaporated due to the intense heats. Evaporated? Aluminum and steel engines evaporated. Brother, come get your Nobel Prize. Here's another question. You ready for this? This is an even bigger one that'll sort of separate how people feel about 9/11. What made Tower Number 7 fall down? Do you believe that a fire made Tower Number 7 fall? If you feel that Tower Number 7 fell because of a fire, I think it was a 48-story skyscraper, collapsed into its own footprint because of a fire, give me a 1. If you feel that it was not a fire that made it collapse, give me a 2 instead. Because remember, this was the tower that wasn't hit by a plane. It wasn't struck by a plane, but it collapsed after burning for just a few hours. Do you feel a fire did this? That just fires burning on a few of the floors made the whole... What you think? What you think? What you think? Find a video for it. Okay, yeah, let me see. Let's find a video for that. Tower Number 7. Okay, what caused this? Let's see that again. Shelly, can we play that again? What caused this to happen? Can a fire do that? What you think? What you think? Can a fire do that? So if Muslims did this, men with Arabic last names, how did they get inside this building to... I mean, because brother, this is about as controlled of a demolition as it gets. Look at that. Look at that. Now, the official explanation is that a piece of debris fell from one of the other towers and set this building on fire, and this is what caused this? Do you believe that this was caused by a fire? What you think? How you feel about this will determine how you feel about everything else. If you can be convinced that that was caused by a fire, if someone can compel you to believe that this was caused by a fire, well, they could probably sell you on a lot of other things too, right? I mean, we don't even have to talk about the Twin Towers. They are a story in and of themselves. We can just talk about this. Was this a fire? And so if they're lying about this, which they clearly are, I don't believe anything else from them. Right? I mean, if they're lying about this, they're probably lying. I mean, people died in this. They're lying to the families of the people who died. If they'll tell that lie to them, what's telling a lie to us? How does all the debris and concrete and steel just turn into dust? Yeah. This is a pretty big lie, and it's a sloppy lie. I feel kind of disrespected by this lie because it tells me that they didn't even feel like they had to give an explanation that made sense. Right? I feel disrespected by sloppy lies. Let me show you some other controlled demolitions. Show you demolitions.
We are counting down the top 20 most incredible building demolitions caught on camera.
Let's look at some other controlled demolitions. Do you see any similarities? Now, we know these are controlled demolitions, right? Take a look at this one. I mean, is that not exactly how Tower number 7 fell? What you think? Yeah. The Tower number 7 demolition was even better than these. These are kind of sloppy compared to Tower 7. I mean, if we believe the 9/11 Commission, you can get a better demolition by just setting the buildings on fire. I wonder why these guys didn't do that. Just set the building on fire, man. Everyone knows that if you set the building on fire, you get a more perfect demolition. Obviously. Everybody knows that. Look at that. Hey, hey. Ooh, Lord, yay. Take a look at the gravity. Hey, 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 hey. Yeah. Yeah. Looking at the demolition, mass deception, that's my mission. I'm gonna make sure that I take this fishing, put it in your face so there's no derision. Ask my permission to walk outside the gate, come back inside before it's way too late. I'm gonna have a bite before 8 because that's the last time I can turn in plates. Yeah, look at this, brothers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I want a war and I might. To get the Americans to bite, use some thermite. At the demo site, got these towers. Gotta bring them down like these foreign powers. In the Middle East where I'm gonna drop bombs. Gotta do this first so everybody stays calm. Ain't no napalm, ain't no Vietnam. But I'm the only date here left for that prom. I'm George Bush and I brought my doctrine. I'm making money cause hours I'm still clocking. I got this lock since my dad came. And I'm here roaring like a hurricane. Alright. Yeah. What you think, gentlemen? Yeah. Yo. It's a controlled demo. Do it real fast and you can slow-mo. This whole projection, are you protecting, asking straight questions, but you just deflecting? Yeah. What's going on with this? Yeah. Yeah. How about some more bars? Yeah. 15. Number 15. Yeah. Look at that. Yeah. Gotta put it at the concrete base. They won't detect me so we can all save face. Gotta make all this stuff move out of this space. So into the Middle East we can all just race. Gotta get that oil, my blood just boils. Gotta get it quickly and remove the topsoil. Put it in the boat and put it on that ocean. Use those waves to create that perfect motion. And I'm scoping and hoping that the people don't see or hear or speak no evil. Cause if they don't, then I guess I won't come in this room and write in a brand new font. Yeah. So, how you feel about this is going to determine how you feel about everything else. So how do you feel about this? Yeah. Yo, tell me, how do you feel? Is this better than a Happy Meal? Gonna put this on my highlight reel. I don't like cornbread unless you got some keel. Or collard greens, that's what I seen when you put your mama's face on the TV screen. And I don't mean to be mean, but I'm truthful. Gonna stay pretty just like I'm still youthful. All right, let's turn those bars off, because if we don't, we won't get anything else done. Yeah, I don't believe these people because I think they lied to me. I think they used this as a pretext to invade Iraq. And I think the president is using a similar tactic. He's building the case as to why you should be afraid of people who've never hurt you in your life. You understand? The president is building a case as to why you should be afraid and fear and hate people who have never harmed you. Thank you, Sushi. Okay? I want you to ask yourself, and I want you to be honest. How many times have you been wounded by a Russian? How many times has a Russian made an enemy of himself to you? How many times has an Iranian threatened you, hurt you, wronged you? If the answer to that is 0, rest assured, gentlemen, the Iranians and the Russians are not your enemies. You understand? If a group of people has never harmed you, how could they qualify as your enemies? You're being led to war by your ruling class. And if they can make you hate strangers, then they really do rule you. The Russians are 100% my enemy. Really? The Russian people? So are you telling me, Jorgensberg, if we went to Russia right now, you don't think you'd have a good time? What you think? If we were right now in Moscow, just living out loud, couple women on our arms, you don't think you'd have a good time, brother? Come on, brother, think about this. No, brother, the Russian people are not threatening to invade you, friend. Come on now. Come on now. The Russian people are not threatening to invade you. You want to know what the Russian people are doing right now? The same thing you're doing. Trying to make a living. Trying to make a living. Trying not to get swept up in a war that their rulers have made for them. Ain't that exactly what you're trying to do? Make a living and not get caught up in some war that your ruling class has made for you? No, brother. The Israelis are not my enemies, friend. Absolutely not. Last year saw the biggest demonstrations and protests against the Israeli government in its history. Most Israelis want Netanyahu to disappear. His decisions are in no way a reflection of the Israeli people. My Israeli brothers and sisters are welcome to my home anytime because they're just like you and me, trying to make a living, trying to go to work, trying to pay their bills, trying to buy some food in a world that their ruling class is making a mess of. These people promised before we elected them that they could fix our problems. They make our food cheaper. They make the world a little safer for our kids. But now they're in office and they're doing the opposite. Now more people are fighting. Now things are more expensive. What the hell are they doing? And you want to go die for these people? Do anything else with your life and you will have done better than that. Do anything else with your life other than dying for your ruling class, and you will have lived a more complete and better life. I'm not talking about the population. That is asinine. The government. Okay. There we go. So the Russian people are not your enemy, Jorgensberg. The Russian people are not your enemy, are they? If you and I went to Moscow right now, you want to know what we would be doing? If anybody in this room went to Moscow with me right now, okay? Right now. If anybody went to Russia, to Moscow with me right now, all we will be doing is sitting in a dimly lit room with 2 women on each arm. You telling me you don't want to do that? You don't want to sit in a dark corner of a Russian bar with 4 women on you, bro? You don't want that? You got something better to do today? You don't want that? You don't want to be sitting in a corner with some beautiful women on your arm? Don't even tell me that lie. Get arrested? Nah. Yeah. Because he is bringing a different perspective. Yeah, it is. Let me catch up with my guy. Guess who? Wait, you were showing the north side of World Trade Center 7. The damage from the crashing antenna sliced into floors 7 to 13. Okay. So are you saying, guess who, that you believe the official story, that it was a fire that made that building fall that way? Fall like this. Remember, what holds a building up? Steel struts, right? Steel struts, and the building falls. You feel a fire caused that. If you do, that's fine. You know, not everyone is going to agree on this, but that's something that I'll never be convinced of. I got to hold on to some things that bind me to reality, and that's one of them. I can't allow people to convince me that a fire can make a building fall down that way. I won't believe it. And I'll just deal with the consequences of not believing that, because I can't believe it. I can't be made to believe that. Gutenberg says, what kind of argument even is that? The beautiful women exist in Moscow, so they are not a fascist dictatorship that support the Russian. I want to find out where we are disagreeing. So, do you feel that the Russian people are your enemy, Jorgensberg? Are you saying the Russian people are your enemy? If that's what you're saying, give me a 1. If you don't feel the Russian people are your enemy, give me a 2. If the Russian people are your enemy, give me a 1. South African leaders were chilling in Moscow. South African brothers. How can you be convinced that the whole population? Well, it depends. I'm not sure if that's his position yet. Okay, so you feel that all Russians are complicit in what their government is doing. Okay. Okay. What about your own nation? Do you feel that 100% of the population supports what your government is doing? Or is that just unique to the Russians? What do you think? You're saying they're either complicit or they support the Russian government. So that's everybody. So they either support the government or they are complicit with them. Wow. Okay, so back to you. What about your own nation? I didn't say 100%. Let me help you understand, Jorgensberg, because you're a cool guy, and I think everybody here likes you. But I think people are just a little confused because your answer is unclear. That's all. I don't really think anyone is disagreeing with you yet. I just think that your answer is a little unclear. Because on one hand, you're saying that the Russian people are your enemy. You said they are either complicit or they support the government. Okay. They're in one of those two categories. They are either complicit or they support what the government is doing. So that would be all of them, right? I mean, that's what you're coming off as. But then at the same time, you're saying it's not 100%. You only gave us two options, but then you're saying it's not 100%. So maybe you could help us just by clarifying your answer a little bit. Are you trying to say that the Russians who support the government are your enemy? Or are you trying to say that every person in Russia is your enemy? What are you saying, brother? I think there are some people who believe that all Germans supported the Nazis. I think there are people in the world today who walk around with that belief that all Germans supported Hitler. Just like I think there might be people walking around believing that all Americans support Trump. You know, it makes it easy to understand people when we put them in very simple categories. If you're American, well, then you support what your government is doing. What is a country, gentlemen? What is a nation? Are countries even real? Are nations even real? Because it seems like whenever people get together, regardless of what country they're from, they tend to get along and do similar things. So are these things even real, right? If you were to take 1,000 random people, okay, from all over the world, from various countries, and put them in the same community for about 6 months, what do you think would happen? I think they'd probably find a way to get along with each other, and they would do it by finding common ground. We might be different in some ways, but they would find enough common ground to survive with each other. So are countries even real? If national differences can be overcome in a matter of months, or really it doesn't even take that long. How many times have you ever met someone from another country and, you spend some time with them, and then before you know it, you sort of forgot what country they were from? Kind of seems like we've known each other our whole lives. Have you ever had that experience? Maybe that's not a universal experience, but I've had that experience where, you know, it's really not important or relevant what country a person is from. A country is a legal fiction. Okay? They're not real. Do you understand this? They are not real. If you were unconscious and I transported your body to some random place on Earth, would you know what country you were in? You'd have no clue what country you were in. So how important can a country be when you don't even know when you're in and outside of it? You're willing to fight and die for something that you don't even recognize when you're outside of. Would you? Of course you wouldn't, but it's that important to you. How do you even know you're in your country right now? A lot of wars and people died to make those lines. Look at how quickly those lines change and move, how disrespectful that is to the dead. Speaking. And how disrespectful that is to the dead, right? All those men who died whistling and marching to the battlefield during the First World War, for those lines to move, virtually not at all. Some of those countries don't even exist anymore. What do you think the map of Europe will look like in 1,000 years from now? What about 10,000 years from now? Will any of these countries even exist in 10,000 years? They're real. Almighty One controls the solar system, galaxies, and the universe. And who is that Almighty One, brother? The Russians have never been our enemy. We cooperate with them and have since World War II. Looks like Jorgensburg gave up on us. Yeah. Yeah, brothers. Some people, it can be difficult to have these conversations sometimes. Sometimes people haven't worked these things out within themselves, right? And when you ask them questions about it, it can cause frustration because maybe they don't know. Maybe they've never had these conversations about how they feel. And having that conversation here makes them feel a certain way that maybe they weren't prepared for. And that's okay, right? That's okay. Wartime tends to bring a lot of stress and a lot of confused emotions. And it's okay if you're struggling with that. It's all right if you're still learning how to deal with that. Because what are we, gentlemen? What do we have the chance to be? We have the chance to be men. To become that thing upon which our friends and our family can depend. To defend the ideas, the institutions, the very abstractions that make life in civilized groups even a possibility for a species like ours. If you've been enjoying the content, gentlemen, consider subscribing to the stream. It helps in ways that you don't know. Yay. Oh, consider joining the stream and be a brother bro. Consider subbing to me like a freak hoe. Consider subbing to me just like a free throw. Yay. Yay. Gentlemen, if you wish to be, you can become a man. Clutch Cargo. Do I hear echoes of your JW past? Not pacifist exactly, but not willing to fight the world's battles. I don't want to fight a battle. No. Oh. I don't want to. No. You give the Jehovah's Witnesses too much credit, brother. Yay. Yay. Don't want to fight a battle. Don't want to fight a battle. Oh, yay. Oh. Don't want to fight a battle. No. Don't want to fight a battle. And you give the witnesses too much credit, friend. The Jehovah's Witnesses are not different from any other religious organization. What do all religious organizations do when it comes to their past? They tell lies. There are things that every religious group has done in the past that they are ashamed of. And how can they not be, right? Every religious organization is going to have a shameful past because religious organizations refuse to adapt and change. And this is a problem because the world is constantly finding new and better ways to do things. But when you belong to a group or an order or a belief system that prioritizes staying the same over changing and adapting, you're going to inevitably make a lot of mistakes, especially when the world moves on and changes its mind. Let me tell you a common belief that pretty much all American Christian churches accepted in the 19th century. It was the idea that black people were the descendants of Cain in the Bible, and that dark skin was a curse from God. Now, looking back at this is incredibly racist and insane. There's no mention of dark skin or black people in the Bible. People didn't talk about each other like that back when the book of Genesis was written. But at the time, that was a very fashionable belief. It was the accepted doctrine of many religious faiths, Christian faiths. And of course it was. It reflected the attitudes of the time. But then what happened? People's attitudes began to change. And because religions resist change, they held on to those very embarrassing beliefs. And so now, all this time later, they have to account for that. Are you saying God was a racist? Imagine being a Mormon right now and having to explain why, for all of those years, God didn't want black people to go to heaven. Why was it a sin for... They got to answer that question. But it's very difficult to answer that because it's embarrassing. So the nature of religion is such to where you have to tell lies. The Mormons will flat out lie about their past and say that they didn't do that. Of course you did. It's just very embarrassing to you, and it should be embarrassing. The Jehovah's Witnesses are no different. The Jehovah's Witnesses have supported every major war. They took sides. How could you not take sides? You can't be preaching against war during a wartime. Remember, every church exists at the mercy of their government. Your government controls whether or not you are registered as a religion, and that means whether or not you get taxed out of existence. If you talk too much shit about your government, they will revoke your registration as a religion and eat you up through taxes, right? They'll eat you up. So you can talk all of that anti-war stuff during a peacetime, but during wartime, if you are a religious organization, you have two choices. You better either say nice things about the war or just be quiet about it. Okay? Or you got to be quiet about it, because you cannot be preaching sedition during a wartime. Seditious religions organizations get their recognition as religions revoked. And this is exactly what the Witnesses did. Charles Taze Russell had encouraged his followers. This is the man who founded the Jehovah's Witnesses. He encouraged his followers to buy war bonds. War bonds. It was right in the pages of his Watchtower Journal, encouraging his parishioners to buy war bonds. That's not neutral. How are you not involved in the world's battles if you're encouraging your members to buy war bonds, right? So you give the Witnesses too much credit when you take them at face value. Just because they say they don't participate, that doesn't mean that that's true. Yeah, you got to look and examine their past. And these were some of the things that I came across in my research, which ultimately led to my decision to do what I did. Yeah, but in a peacetime, every Christian religion is going to say, oh, we preach peace, peace, peace. Well, watch how quickly that tune changes when the fighting starts. Yeah, to preach against religion during a wartime, to preach against war during a wartime is called sedition. Mormons have a cartoon on YouTube about how black people were cursed with dark skin because they didn't pick a side when the devil rebelled. I give the Mormons a bit of credit because they're not the ones who created that belief. That's an old Christian idea that's been in American Christianity for a long time. The Christianity of the Americans had to account for what the Americans were doing. They were enslaving Negroes, right? You can't go and sit in church in a nation where there are chained up Negroes outside and not talk about it. We have to somehow find a way to account for the fact that we keep these Negroes in chains. And so they came up with something. Well, they're cursed. In the Bible, it said that Cain was supposed to be a servant to his brothers. Or Ham. That's what they all do, just justify their sins. But that's just adapting, right? Your religion has to adapt to account for your values. We will bend our religion around our values and use it to justify our values. So if we feel that blacks are inferior and deserving of enslavement, we will bend our religious ideas, our version of Christianity, to account for the fact that we are enslaving blacks. That's just how it goes. But then when those values change, now we're in trouble, aren't we? Because we just got finished saying that God was behind that proclamation or those values. But now that those values have changed and they're no longer popular, our clinging to them is putting us at odds with the population we're hoping to convert. So inevitably, the religion has to walk back what they said. And this is embarrassing, especially because religions draw their validity from the idea that they don't change, but they have to change, don't they? What did Paul say about homosexuality? He said it was an abomination, and that gay people don't go to heaven. They're outside with the dogs, is what he said. Outside this gate. Well, I guess that would be John the Seer. In the book of Revelation, John the Seer describes the kingdom of God as a city that was 1,500 cubits in all directions, width, height, and length. 1,500 cubits. Imagine a city that big. Stretches 1,500 miles in all directions. Huge. 1,500 square miles, cubed miles, huge amount of space. And then John went on to say that inside of that city, there's a whole bunch of beautiful things going on. God's tent is in that city. God has a tent, and he put that tent in the city, and God dwells in that tent with men in that city. But he said outside of that city are the dogs and the gays. You don't get to come in. But what religion is going to say that today? You might have some religions all Christian churches used to say that, because that's what John the Seer wrote in his Revelation. Yeah, said he's in a tent, and the tent of God will be with mankind forever. All Christian churches used to preach that. But how many of them preach it now? You can be openly gay and go to church. It's not about that no more. They just focus on love and acceptance now. Why? Well, because values changed, and because the religion hopes to convert people who carry the value that homosexuality is fine. They had to walk that back, and that's embarrassing. We've been saying for hundreds of years that gay people don't go to heaven. Now they do. Did God change his mind? So God used to hate gay people. Now he doesn't anymore? Or did you change your mind, which meant that you haven't been listening to God? That's a very uncomfortable position to be in. And every religion is in that position now. All of them. And the witnesses are no different. So when the witnesses say that they've never been in wars and they don't take sides, you give them too much credit when you take them at their word. You have to research them to see if that's actually true. Right? It's true. Imagine if you took the Catholic Church at their word. What would they say about themselves? Oh, we don't do that. We don't do this. Okay, look at their past. They've done it all. Islam, since being zesty, is a full legal crime. Used to be that way in Christianity too. In many American places, sodomy is still illegal. What was the penalty? They were hanging Europeans for sodomizing each other. You don't remember that? It ain't just the Muslims. Every Abrahamic religion that has put a prohibition on homosexuality has at some point killed gay people. Okay, so you can't say it's a Muslim thing. It's no. It's sort of a monotheistic Abrahamic religion thing. Okay, it's an Abrahamic religion thing because all of them have at some point. The Jews in the Torah prescribed the punishment for gays. It was to throw rocks at them until they died. Christians killed homosexuals. Muslims are presently killing homosexuals. So, yeah, bro, they're all covered in it. There's no getting out of it. Well, we don't do it anymore. Well, you don't do it anymore. But there are churches in existence today now that'll run you out if you're gay. So, there's no way to point that finger at anyone else without also pointing it at your own church and your own religion. What would Jesus have done to a gay person? If you came out as gay to Jesus, what would he have said? What would Jesus have done to a gay person? If you were openly homosexual, what would Jesus have said? Jesus would not have, well, it depends on what gospel you read. The Gospel of Matthew, Jesus comes off as very Jewish and very conservative. Whoever it was that penned the Gospel of Matthew was trying to make the point that Jesus was very Jewish. He tells some lies, specifically when it comes to Jesus's genealogy, to try to demonstrate how just super Jewish he was. But Jesus said that not one word. Remember, Jesus was asked by the rich man. He said, what does he have to do to make it into God's kingdom? And what did he tell him? He said, keep the commandments. Jesus was telling Jews to keep the law. Let's go to Matthew chapter 5. So the Mosaic law said that homosexuals should be stoned to death. Okay? Let's go to Matthew chapter 5. What did Jesus say about that law? What did he say about it? Matthew chapter 5, verse 17, he says, "Think not that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I came not to destroy, but to fulfill. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments, and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever shall do and teach them, he shall be called great in the kingdom of the heavens." So, Jesus preached that people should keep the law, at least according to Matthew. Jesus was pro-law. So he would have prescribed the very same treatment, that homosexuals should be stoned to death, because that's what the law prescribed for homosexuals. But this is embarrassing now because values have changed. We no longer kill homosexuals. So we now have to account for, okay, so why did Jesus not say that? Right? Why would Jesus point to a law book that said to kill gay people? Yeah. Gentle Jesus, meek and mild, right? No. Homosexuals don't have children that can fund the church for more generations. That's probably a more practical reason as to why they don't like it. He trashed the temple of merchants. Do you believe that happened? You believe that story? That he went into the temple and turned the tables over? Okay. A lot of people believe that story. It never happened. I mean, it never happened. But hey, what's it matter? If you derive some satisfaction from hearing that, if it makes you a better person, why not believe it? We can say with almost absolute certainty that it didn't happen. And the reason we can is because the person who wrote that story had no way of knowing if that happened. The first gospel was in 70 AD. This is 40 years after the death of Christ. None of the people who wrote those gospel accounts were there when any of these things happened. The person who wrote that story was writing down what they had been hearing for decades. Again, the earliest gospel, which is Mark, was written 40 years after Jesus died. So whoever wrote it was not there when it happened. You understand? 40 years, yeah. And the person who wrote it wasn't there. You understand? You want to know how we know that person wasn't there? Because the apostles of Jesus, according to the Gospels, were illiterate. They didn't know their letters. So they couldn't write anything. They couldn't read because they didn't know their letters. If you don't know your letters, let's say you didn't know the English alphabet, can you read and write? No. But they did speak. They spoke a language called Aramaic. These Gospels are written in Greek. Whoever wrote these Gospels was a Greek speaker, and they were educated. So, again, whoever wrote those books never met Jesus, and likely never met any of the people who would have been there to see that happen. You understand what that means? I'm saying that it didn't happen because the person who wrote it made it up. So how could it be a true story if the person who wrote it down wasn't there to see it and made it up. We do know that. I just explained it to you, brother. I just explained it to you, brother. Listen. No, brother. The stories are made up. Stories are made up. So if I write about Billy the Kid, he never existed because I didn't know him, and we're over 100 years after his life, that's not true. Well, there are other reasons to believe that Billy the Kid existed, right? We're not left to just rely on your word. There are other reasons to believe that Billy the Kid existed. There were people alive when he was alive that wrote about him, and we have a verifiable way of authenticating that the people who wrote about him actually knew him. But let's say that you read a story about Billy the Kid shooting a fly off the president's ass. Would you believe that? It could have happened. How do you know it didn't happen? How do you know that Billy the Kid didn't shoot a fly off the tip of the president's ass? Just because something could have happened isn't a reason to believe that it did happen, right? So if the person who wrote it wasn't there, there's no reason to believe any of what they said. They weren't there. You understand? If anyone ever comes, let me help you guys out. If anyone ever comes to you with the story and they're telling you about something they weren't there to see, they're probably wrong, right? You can't go to court and give testimony about something you didn't see. If you didn't see it, as far as the court is concerned, it didn't happen. How do you know what happened if you weren't there to see it? How can the court rely on the testimony of a person who wasn't there? As far as the court is concerned, your testimony is moot. And I'm saying the testimony of whoever wrote that book is moot because they weren't there. You understand? They weren't there. You have no authority to give any legitimacy to what you're saying if you weren't there. You understand? If you weren't there, there is no reason to believe that any of what you have to say about what happened is true. If you understand this, give me a 1 in the chat. If a person ever comes to you with a story about something they didn't witness, you can immediately discount them. I don't have to sit and listen because you weren't there. So it's impossible for you to tell me about it. I would be a fool to listen to the story of someone who admits that they weren't there. Hey, I wasn't there to see this, but let me tell you exactly what happened. Yeah. So you can do that with all of the gospel accounts because the earliest gospel is 40 years after the death of Jesus, which is Mark. And then you have Matthew, and then you have Luke, and then you have John. None of these books were written by people who were there. So we can take everything they said and throw it off the table. These aren't eyewitness accounts. These are stories that have been passed on by word of mouth for decades. They're probably 100% fictitious. I mean, who knows after so long? Who knows what changed? Everything probably changed. Let's not even get into the Gospel of Judas. Have you read the Gospel of Judas? What about the Gospel of Thomas? According to the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus had a twin brother. The Gospel of Thomas gets really weird. According to him, he had a twin brother. Yeah. You believe that? You believe that? Because that's a pretty broad outline, Jesus having a twin brother. You believe that? You probably don't believe it. So how can you believe some of what was written and not all of it? Right? How can you believe some of what was written and not all of it? No. Thomas said he had a twin brother. Not siblings, a twin brother. You believe that? You probably don't believe it. Because that's not your tradition. But for the cultures who have accepted the Gospel of Thomas, that's canon when it comes to Jesus. Their Jesus had a twin brother. Your Jesus doesn't. It's because your religious tradition discounts the Gospel of Thomas. Why? Do you even know why the Gospel of Thomas wasn't included in your Bible canon? Doesn't change much. Okay. You should read what else happened, what Thomas said. The Gospel of Thomas kind of fills in some of Jesus's childhood and early life, because we don't have a theogony of Jesus in the gospel. And a theogony is a story about how the gods came to exist. Jesus is born, but we have no story about how he went from being a baby born in a basket to being the Son of God, the Christ, the Messiah. All of that sort of left out, right? He's a baby. He's answering questions in the temple. And then suddenly he comes out into the wilderness to be baptized by John the Baptist all these years later. Where's the theogony? There is no theogony for Jesus until you get to the Gospel of Thomas. You should read the Gospel of Thomas and then come up to, make up your own mind about whether or not you feel it's authentic. And while you're at it, read the Gospel of Judas as well. Yeah, these are both good reads. Gentlemen, we're going to be back a little bit later this evening for a part 2 of this stream. Read the Gospel of Thomas, brother. Do you accept the Gospel of Judas as being inspired of God too? Have you accepted? Okay. How do you square that with what the other? Who cares? If it gives you meaning and purpose, why not believe it, right? If it makes things easier for you, why not, right? So we're going to be back this evening, gentlemen. Maybe not even this evening, a little bit later. And we'll continue. But in the meantime, gentlemen, you need to be strong, brother. You need to be strong, brother, to stand against the machinations of the devil and to prove yourselves worthy of the mantle of man. Before you say you can't do that, before you say you tried your best and your best wasn't good enough, just remember, you're doing it right now. So get up, go out into the world one more time, and this time, do it sober.